This is the home of Charles Lang Freer, who lived from 1854 to 1919 and lived in this house from 1892 until his death in 1919. Freer was a very significant member of the Detroit business and civic and social community. He co-founded the Michigan Peninsula Railroad Car Company, manufacturing freight railroad cars in Detroit with his next-door neighbor, Colonel Frank Hecker. So they had the largest manufacturing facility in Michigan, and they were the largest single employer in Michigan. Railroad freight car manufacturing preceded the automobile industry as a major industry of Detroit.
What is the connection with Chinese art?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Freer, of course, made his money in manufacturing, but his true interest in love was art. And he started collecting actually American artists, but he became very interested in Asian art as a young man. And toward the end of his life, he retired from business at age 45. He created a merger of 13 railroad car companies into what is today American Car and Foundry, and he spent the rest of his life traveling the world, especially to Asia, to assemble what turned out to be one of the most important collections of Asian art in the world. It all came back to his house in Detroit. He stored it here, displayed it here. And in 1904, he started discussions with the United States government. He wanted to create his collection as a national collection, the first true national collection. So he agreed that upon his death, he would bequeath his collection to the Smithsonian and to the United States government to create what is today the Freer Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. It's the first art museum of the Smithsonian, and today is considered to be our national Asian art museum. It also has American art because he was interested in points of contact between East and West and looking for relationships aesthetically between the present day and the past and different types of art. He thought there were universal harmonies of all arts, of all cultures, and that our challenge is to find those connections between ourselves, cross-cultural relations through the arts. And he became especially interested in Chinese art towards the end of his life. He did collect art from the Middle East, from India, from Korea, from Japan. But towards the end of his life, he really was focusing on China and making trips to China and working with the dealers, but also going directly to the sites in China and to better understand the art there and Chinese art and culture, and wanting to introduce Americans to Chinese art and culture through art and his collection. In his lifetime, he was considered the authority in the Western world on Chinese art. So many people came to Detroit to meet him. Collectors of Asian and Chinese art from around the world came to Detroit to visit him in his home, to see his art collection. So we have very important stories in Detroit. And it was really Detroit industry and Detroit business that allowed him to amass the funds that allowed him to collect. And he would tap experts from the University of Michigan to help him in identifying through their scholarship, because very little in the West was known about Chinese art 100 years ago. So he was really on the leading edge. But he also wasn't just interested in the object. He was very, very interested in the culture and the Chinese people. And one of the things that we discovered was a 1911 Detroit Free Press interview with Freer when he returned from China on one of his extended voyages. And they wanted to know about his impressions of China, which was not well known, certainly in Detroit. He opened up his statement saying that he had been so beautifully received by the Chinese people. Everyone from the most average person on the street to dignitaries in the government, that he was very upset that the United States had the Chinese Exclusion Act, and he said he was opposed to the United States government prohibiting immigration from China into the United States. This is a man who had extensive connections in Washington. He personally knew the President, Teddy Roosevelt. So for him to make a public statement opposing the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1911 was very significant. And that he said it twice in that interview with the Detroit Free Press. So it's really, I think, a man who was quite unique. He wasn't just trying to look at someone's culture, he was trying to look at the entire group of people that created that culture and appreciating them. It's a terrific advantage for us to have the opportunity to reach many communities through you to help raise awareness of this important history of this historic building in Detroit, the events that we do here, our efforts to build bridges through cross-cultural connections, through the arts in particular, and through history, and to make all of this, your audience, feel a part of the history of Detroit, especially now that Detroit is being revitalized. I think everyone that comes here can understand that there was someone over 100 years ago that appreciated the arts and culture of China, of Asia, and made sure that Detroit would contribute to this wonderful cross-cultural understanding.